There we go. And now we're actually live. Posh was like in the middle of a sentence, and I just clicked the go live button.
To be fair, my sentences last for like 3 minutes.
Yeah. He was 10 minutes into a short sentence.
Yeah, it's fine. We wouldn't have started for an hour or so.
Yeah. I keep saying, I should tell you about this. Oh no, I'll wait till we go live. I'll tell you about it in a minute.
All right.
Yes.
Should share
Speaking of
this
which,
out.
that was the thing. I sent you a video today of my daughter playing her first Gaelic football match
Yes.
today, and it's funny. You probably didn't notice it, but as I was recording that video, just randomly, one of the girls in the other team just started assaulting my daughter, which is why I stopped videoing. Right? That's why I stopped videoing, and I just clicked send. And then I wanted to go back and look at it to try and figure out what the hell happened, because her coach was like, she didn't do anything. She just tackled her. And this girl just started you don't see it in 10-year-old girls very often, sports. But this one just kind of came in swinging and kind of wouldn't drop it. But afterwards, she's like sneaking up to like elbow my daughter and everything, like just whenever the ref's not looking and stuff. And it was just like a really weird thing to happen during her first ever friendly match at like a 10-year-old GAA match.
Friendliest, Irish sporting event. Oh goodness.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know the rules, and you couldn't see much from where you were filming. But
yeah,
and it's also the bloody Instagram thing where it just deletes the thing after you've recorded it. So I didn't get the picture of what is Gaelic football? What's the difference between that and the regular one?
So Gaelic football is, Australian rules.
Australian rules sort of like half like American football and half something else.
Yeah, it's almost rugby-ish and football-ish.
Yeah.
Gaelic football is a little bit like, just because it's for whatever reason, Australian rules is a little bit more famous. It's easier to say it's a little bit like Australian rules, but it's there's a round ball. You're allowed to kick the ball off the ground into your hands. You can't pick the ball directly off the ground. You have to kick it into your own hands from the ground.
Okay.
And when you run with the ball, you can run for 3 steps, drop the ball, kick it with your foot back into your hands, and you can continue running indefinitely. Okay. And when you score, there's a H-shaped goals, and above the bar is a point, and under the bar is a goal.
I see.
Essentially, that's the broad strokes of the sport, how it works.
Well, my only knowledge of Australian football is a Conan O'Brien video, so I'm not exactly an expert on it. So, but
because there are such good similarities between them. There's another sport called international rules, which is a mixture of Gaelic football and Australian rules that we play against each other from time to time.
So wait, do you say soccer for like?
I say soccer. I do. A lot of people who are soccer fans in Ireland hate that. But I say it because it differentiates from football, from Gaelic football, right?
Yeah, because when you say football, I'm expecting football. Like in Serbia, we say football. So, so when you said football, I was expecting the soccer variety.
Mm-hmm.
You're all becoming Americans. Goodness.
Yeah, I think the most often people just say GA here, like it's GAA, Gaelic Athletic Association. So people say GA, or they say
not a global American empire.
No,
that's a convenient coincidence.
Yeah, very suspicious.
Yeah. Okay. Well, any tackling and so, or not?
Yeah. Really? It's a very both of the main Irish sports, Gaelic football and hurling, are very, very physical.
Okay, yeah.
So it'd be common enough. Go on.
Well, I was not expecting a lot of violence from a 10-year-old girls match. Maybe it's one of those daddy's girls that their father never got over the fact that it wasn't a son, so they make like a makeshift son out of their daughter.
I actually heard something about that recently, that apparently this is this could be one of those nonsense facts, but apparently men will treat their firstborn child like a son, regardless if it's a girl or a boy.
I've not heard that, but I don't know. Maybe it's like the training wheels. You don't know exactly what to do, so you treat it as if you would have liked to have been treated when you were a child. But then I'm just armchair psychologizing. So.
Which is the most fun and reasonable use for psychology, I think.
Well, the least vicious one, I think, the least dangerous one. But yeah, it's fun. I don't know. I've never been exactly a sports person, so I've trained like a lot of things, but because I'm not a sports person, I did it for like a couple of months, and then I sod off. I'm very happy just lifting weights. It's very autistic, very adaptable, and I also always preferred like single sports to team sports. So I played. The only thing I've trained for years was table tennis, because it's individual. Tennis is very expensive to actually train, so that was out of the question. But table tennis is like the budget version, and I'm always happy about that.
It's supposed to be one of the best things you can play in terms of your long-term mental health, table tennis.
Oh, it's great.
Speaking of psychology, anything where you cross over, you're doing this, what's this called? Where you're crossing your right hand over to your left hand side?
Backhand and forehand or something?
No, I mean any sport or any activity where you're crossing your hands across your center line.
Okay.
And you're doing this kind of movement is apparently very good for your brain health.
Oh, I didn't know that. I know about the benefits of using your non-dominant hand to write every so often. Crossing the middle line, Irene says. It's called, that's forehand and backhand, but I wasn't acquainted with the term itself. But as I said, writing with your left hand really reduces the chances of a stroke for some reason. Because you shouldn't allow one hand to be too dominant. I'm not saying writing it on for something important, but just if you're bored or something, write out a couple of sentences with your non-dominant hand. It's going to suck, and majorly so, but it's very good for your neurophysiology.
Well, in Ireland, not that long ago, literally during like the boomers' time, like really not that long ago, we still were into the whole right-handed left
only
hand is against God kind of thing. And so I know that like my uncle, my mom's brother, was forced to write with his right hand, I'm pretty sure.
My maternal grandfather was.
Okay.
So yeah.
And now all the moaning and complaining that they did about that, it was actually good for them.
Yeah.
To be forced. Yeah, it was good for. They're not going to have strokes now, thanks to that.
Yeah. My grandfather died without a single stroke in his life.
Yeah. And he had those teachers who beat him into using his right hand to thank for it.
Yeah, it wasn't seen as blasphemous or anything. It was just seen as poor, how shall I say, like bad manners, basically. Writing with your left hand. Yeah. I think some of it has to do. I'm not sure how like writing with ink works with writing right to left. Like with Semitic languages, because the biggest reason left to right was standardized was exactly because you don't want to smudge things. This is different than writing with your right or your left hand. But as you're writing, the ink is drying, and you're not smudging it with your palm. So I never understood, like with Hebrew and Arabic, if you have some type of cuneiform like the Assyrians, that's not a problem because you have that little stick thingy you use to imprint on clay. That's no smudging there. The Japanese and the Chinese used to write not just left to right, but top to bottom.
Yeah.
but their way of writing was always from the top, sort of. You wouldn't. You
Japanese
wouldn't
will still
rest
do
your
that.
hand.
They'll still do that in documents and things, in like official documents, or like in work. When obviously I worked there. Sometimes like official documents from the president of the company would come down like that.
But probably it's considered more formal.
Yeah.
But like left to right and is just superior. It's everyone is almost everyone is right-handed. Like I think 15% of the population is left-handed, and it just is very easy to read. If you find the Greeks until it was standardized, you still have some leftover, copies of the New Testament where they would write left to right at the end of the sentence or the line. They move down and write right to left.
Wow.
And so it's like a snake thing, that game, because it was all capital letters, no spaces. That's all invented in the Middle Ages. So it didn't really matter all that much, because a lot of the training we have is because we're used to starting with the capital letter and then moving on to the lowercase letters. That's a huge trigger for how you would read a word. But if they're all capital letters and they're all just clustered, they're not separated by spaces or anything, you don't have those inhibitions, and you would be accustomed to reading it like we are regular wording nowadays.
Yeah, Reina Velas came in a good bit late with the crossing the midline. Yeah. So what were we going to talk about today, Posh? So patriarchy's back, I believe.
Oh yeah, big time. We're we are not even providing women with the what's it called, Handmaid's Tale outfits. They have to sew them themselves. They can get raw material. That's fair enough. That's like industry. That's man's work. So it's been rather hilarious, but also rather tragic in certain cases. We won't be going over the people literally killing others.
Oh, yeah.
But those are already people with very frail mental health. So the funnier aspects of it are the internet reactions. That's the one thing we want to cover. The second is, I saw this, I woke up for some reason like 4:30 in the morning, and it took me a while to get back to sleep. So I found this post on Twitter, and the replies are what got me more than the post itself, and the implications of such type of posting on a couple of levels. Because the gender dynamics have been somewhat damaged by this election. And the positive thing is that white women are now not allowed to be made fun of. They came through with over half for Trump. So, as I said on my channel, and as far as my authority on this channel, half I own, half is not allowed to make fun of white women anymore.
So this was the post you pointed out to me.
Yes. And by the way, that's the full one. The one I saw, it was the original one, was this one. And I wouldn't have even thought that it was, cut down. But you see at the end of the first paragraph, it says, he's super, and it just cuts off that. That's what, triggered something in me. I was like, he's super. Like, there are a couple of languages where you use super as not just an adjective, but in Serbia, we say when something is great, we say super, and that's it, but not in English. I suppose you could, but not really a thing people do. So let's go back to the
other one,
the full one, and I'll read this out. because I'm the linguist guy, I have to. So this is a subreddit called Our Relationship Advice. And it goes like this. I, 27 female, screamed at my husband, 28 male, over his hobbies, and now he's changed, and I don't know how to fix this. Hey everyone, I need some advice about the situation with my husband. I'm 27 female, he's 28 male, and we've been married for 4 years. He has a room where he keeps all his hobbies: sim racing, aviation setup, soccer analysis tools, Lego, there goes that soccer thing again, Lego sets, music production equipment. Basically, it's his sanctuary. He's super analytical and loves writing down and discussing things from sports to politics. He's slightly on the spectrum and very introverted, so he doesn't have close friends. I'm really the only person he shares everything with. He's always inviting me into his space to be part of his interests. I love him and appreciate that he wants to include me, but sometimes I just need some time for myself. Recently, I snapped. I yelled at him, saying some hurtful things that I didn't mean, like how his interests bore me, that he needs to get a social life, and even questioned why I married him. I regret every word, but my anger got the best of me and I couldn't control it at that moment. Since then, he's completely changed. He stopped spending time in his room, moved to sleeping on the couch, and barely talks to me. He even ignored our usual tradition of watching our home nation's soccer team play, something he'd never skipped before. Instead, he was working on his laptop, breaking our no work at home rule. When I asked him about it, he said he didn't care about the game and mentioned that maybe he should be more like his father, who's a workaholic and whom my husband idolizes. He even added, I don't blame him for divorcing at that age now. I've apologized multiple times, but he just says, it's okay, maybe you're right, and shuts down any attempts I make to talk about his interests. I'm terrified he's considering divorce. I know I messed up, but I don't know how to rebuild trust and help him feel valued and loved again. I don't want to lose him, but I'm unsure how to approach this and make amends. Any advice? We don't need a TLDR because it was long enough for me to read.
Yeah. So,
right. Go ahead.
No, you continue. Tell me what it is that specifically you're thinking about this. What is it that's on your mind about it?
First thing is outstandingly poor communications. Like, this is the most easily solvable thing in the world if you just ask for some space. I know there are very clingy people who feel like if you ask for space, like, oh, is it happening? Am I going to be abandoned?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. But people really need to communicate. We are very, not neophytes, neotenous is what I want to say, very puerile. And basically no one says anything until things burst,
Mm-hmm.
which is not how adults should act. And that's my condemnation of her behavior. Because it's a problem, because now you're all a different person to him. I personally, but this is me, I'm not saying one should replicate this, I always make fun of everything everyone does. So, even if I like it.
Yeah. That's me too.
Right. So it doesn't come off as a shock. But if you shouldn't pretend like you like something, but that doesn't mean you should clamp down on it. Like, if the person you're with has a hobby you're not into, you don't like, and isn't some, like gambling, something that's very destructive, because none of what was described was destructive, just common autistic male hobby. Don't pretend like you're into it, because you're feeding a certain view of yourself to the other person. And then once you find a moment of weakness, and there's plenty of moments of weakness in all our lives, it's going to snap and come out. And now I'm not sure how one can rebuild that. It's not impossible, but it doesn't have the former glory, because how can you enjoy it now after being yelled at in your own sanctuary?
Yeah.
So this isn't something where I wanted to say, oh, just man up and do things. Like, no, this was completely improper, and rather vile. Although I understand also you would get angry and you say things you don't mean. I don't know when we stopped saying that's the case. Everyone wants to take, like, when you're angry, you usually want to inflict damage. So you just go for it. But as far as that side of the post is concerned, just be a grown up for heaven's sake. It's not that difficult to say, hey, I'm not into it. If you are, go right ahead. Maybe sometimes I can join you, but it's because I care for you, not because I care for the hobby in question.
Now, Johnny Arcade said while you were reading it, a toy room.
Yeah, basically.
Basically. Now, what do you think in general? It's slightly off. It's slightly askew to what you were actually talking about. But what do you think about this general? Because there's a definite tendency amongst men now to play maybe too many computer games and to involve themselves in like Marvel movies way too much, and this kind of thing. But then there are these kind of, as you call them, autistic male hobbies that a certain section of us definitely sort of gravitate towards, things like Warhammer and so on. Where is the healthy balance for men in this? Because certainly it takes your natural dopamine systems and it directs them the wrong way at the very least, right?
Right. Well, as we could ascertain from the description of his hobbies, like he's into like analytics. That's a very, someone is very right-brained, as they say. It takes. It's not just toys. It has toys, but it's also Legos, and it's sort of like women who crochet or something. Like my own mother, I know, it really has a calming effect on her. Not necessarily crocheting, but knitting. Knitting, that's what I meant. Crocheting is a different thing. That aspect of it, and there are many forms, like the old building that ship in a bottle stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not even new. But it has a calming effect. Apparently he works, so he's not some deadbeat. If there's a no work at home rule, that means there is a work at work rule.
It also implies that he might be the kind of person who would work at home. So he's not. So she's not struggling with the fact that he's a layabout.
Exactly. Rules are established when there's a need for rules to be established. It's not just some abstraction that is, brought down for no reason whatsoever. That's one thing. The second thing is, as you said, it gets easily out of balance. And it's something to negotiate, actually. If you're a single person and you do these things, you're sort of negotiating with an ethical system or some practical inconvenience. But when there's another person there, you need to talk about it, because you can't just expect to be even told if something is bothering, because a lot of people are quiet, just okay, whatever, and we see how that ends. But on the other hand, just talk about it. Hey, I'm going to spend some time on this, and work something out. It can't be just always on intuition. But Marvel movies, God, I said movies. But I hate the word movie. That's what you're muted.
I was saying, so you can only say film. Is that the rule for you?
Yes, okay. But somehow Marvel movie is like a phrase in my mind. Yeah. It's not two separate words.
It's definitely a kind of an Americanism, isn't it? Movies.
Yes, but
certainly when I was a
motion picture.
Yeah, when I was a kid, it was certainly everyone said film here, and movies was definitely the Americanism, and I think it's crept in a little bit more. But
Oh
possibly,
yeah,
like you say, when you're referring to things, like it comes as a phrase like that, like Marvel movie or
yeah.
superhero movie, or I'm not sure if I'd say, do you want to watch a movie? I'm not sure if I'd say, there you go.
Yes,
Anyway,
yes. In general, I almost never use it, but people think in phrases, not in words. That's something you learn in when you study linguistics. But not to get nerdy about it. Like I just have no time for those. I think that's completely juvenile, but it's also a lot of people who think Warhammer would be juvenile, like perhaps not the content of it, but engaging with it.
how
So
dare they?
heretics. so yeah, I think you can still have time for that. People need these types of things to de-stress, and if you're a bit autistic, better that than, I don't know, medicaments and and alcohol and stuff.
Yeah.
So, but it's a negotiated thing.
Yeah. No, I was just agreeing, like that tendency towards because especially with ADHD, one of the major issues, and it's so common nowadays. Apparently, I think it's overdiagnosed, but it's also quite common nowadays. But it's not even an attention deficit disorder, right? It's a dopamine regulation disorder more than nearly anything else, and so you do have that horrible tendency as an ADHD person myself to seek dopamine any old way you can get it, whether it's conflict seeking or from alcohol or from thrills or whatever way you can get it. And people will then throw themselves into fruitless hobbies and then find themselves in the wreckage of it afterwards. Why do I have all these looms?
Yeah. It's hyper focused. You get into I don't have this particular problem, but I've read about it. You get into hyper focus on the most disconnected thing from your usual life, and all of a sudden, as you said, looms. You get interested in medieval Holy Roman
medieval
Empire heraldry, and
you're gonna be able to make perfect medieval tunics.
No, you won't actually. You'll get. It will abandon you. The urge will abandon you halfway through, and you're just left, as you said, in the wreckage. But if you're going to marry this person, you should be aware of that. You should compensate for that. You're not going to just fix ADHD. So account for it. We all make these concessions when you enter a relationship, obviously. And that's not to say you lose something. Technically you do, but you gain much more from a healthy functioning family than you do from hobbies. So you can't behave the same way when you're single and when you're married, especially if children are added into the mix. So, find a balance. The biggest problem in that post is that he thought that she was into it. so he was thrilled. And that's the big thing. If I know, my girlfriend or wife or whatever doesn't like something I do, like studying languages for like 3 hours a day, writing weird things. If I know it annoys her and she gets annoyed with it, I'm like, oh, she's annoyed by this thing she's annoyed by. So it's tautological. It's not exactly a shock. But it's like, oh, I love the fact that you study, and then all of a sudden, you moron, you autistic git, then it would be a shock. But it comes from poor communication. And I think the poor communication comes from not just a lack of emotional maturity, but from how shall we say, you're just not an adult, and you're too afraid of ever confronting anything ever. It's cowardice.
Yeah. I'm actually trying to find this the video that inspired me to say looms. It's actually a video. Did I send it to you?
I think you sent it to me, yes.
I'm wondering, did I send it to Irene? Because I often send Irene videos that I hope will help her to understand my mind. So, sneakily. But let's see. If I sent it to you, it might be here in this chat. Hold on. It was a very funny video about that nature of hyperfocus. That side of it. Where is it? Oh, there it is. Yeah, I've got it here. So let's see now. Actually, I'll play this while I'm trying to figure out how to download that. I had another video I was going to show you. You've never seen this. So back in the 90s, 80s and 90s in Ireland, we had a kids TV show. It was called The Den. And essentially what it was like an amalgamator. He would sit there and announce that now the Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles are on, and then he'd announce what was coming up and make jokes, and there was puppets that would talk to you and this kind of thing, right? And two of the puppets were just kind of spooky puppets that would come on, and the kids were all afraid of them, and they ended up having their own adult TV show afterwards. After that TV show ended, these two puppets had like a talk show where they would bring on real celebrities and talk to them. And it's amazing to think how recently this show was being made. It's like early 2000s, like 2006, I think it started, that they changed over from being a kid's puppet to an adult puppet.
Right.
And it was called Podge and Raj, for anybody who wants to look it up. And I'm going to show a clip of just the patriarchy's back was the theme of showing this particular clip, that this is what we can expect now. And here they are. And I'll go get that other video while I have it playing.
Now listen, you are quite a high-profile donut banger, if you don't mind me saying. But what's it like being a leser in Ireland nowadays? Because in the old days, honest to God, Anna, in the old days, you wouldn't even be buried in consecrated ground. But what's it like nowadays?
It's good. I don't know. It's fine. It's, I think most people are open-minded and don't care what you do.
No, we don't give a shite.
You don't care, it is.
No, there's just one question I did want to ask. I'm sort of curious about. How come a lot of lesbians, and I'm not saying you now, right, go out with lesbians that look like fellas?
You mean with the short hair and the
some of them just
dungarees
like that.
and the Doc Martens?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if it's a phase they go through. I remember when I lived in Edinburgh and I went through that whole phase. I had shaved hair and Doc Martens and dungarees, and I don't know, maybe you just want to fit in, and if that's what everybody looks like on a certain scene, you know, like the two of you look pretty similar, and I don't know if that's
you know, but there's no attraction here, obviously.
No.
We're brothers.
Just the odd tug. But then
That's desperation, though, really.
Yeah.
Listen, were you ever a meat eater?
I mean, yes, I was, yeah.
Oh, you went with fellas?
I did, until I was around 22, 23, and went out with this really nice fella, and I kind of had an interesting night with him in County Kerry, and he said, enough is enough, I don't think I'm meant to be with fellas.
No.
Was he not washing it?
So that's that video. So that's Podge and Raj. For anybody who is not Irish and wants to go look up Podge and Raj, you'll find a lot of clips like that.
What on earth is happening? I'm exceedingly confused.
That's pre-2010 Irish television, basically. That's what it was like.
I don't think we've ever had anything of the sort. I mean, with the content of like, we have like comedy shows, and there's like dirty jokes is the best you get, and they're not very explicit.
Johnny Arcade said, I thought you were making fun of Owen. He used to have a loom as a kid. Well, isn't that just expected?
Yeah. He also had a transgender piano teacher. So.
Yeah, I wonder, was it the ADHD or the gayness though that why he had them? So I have this other one. I actually found it, the hyperfocus. So I'll put that on because it's one of those things, right? Obviously, because ADHD is such a popular topic now, and you have all these girls online who are like, or not just girls,
Oh
people.
goodness!
I'm so ADHD that I can't even do this, and it's nothing to do with
women, especially online, seem to think of like mental disorders as like Pokemon. Gather as many as you can. There are entire ones where they write about being psychopaths, and it's like you're just sound annoying.
So here's this guy.
Well, can't you just like hyper focus and get it all done? Hold on. I don't get to choose what I hyper focus on or when I do. It's not like hyper focus, activate. This isn't some Power Ranger transformation where I morph into a productivity machine. No. Hyper focus is more like my brain suddenly shouting, "Congratulations! For the next 72 hours, your entire identity revolves around the history of candle making. Hope you didn't have any plans." It's not just, oh, I can only focus on the things I like. No. That's cute. Hyperfixation is when your brain decides out of nowhere, hey, you know what? We're going to be obsessed with medieval farming techniques for the next 2 weeks. Cancel everything else. It's like being a temporary addict, but instead of drugs, it's Super Mario Odyssey or knitting your own socks. A hyperfixation is all-consuming. I wake up thinking about it. I fall asleep thinking about it, assuming I even sleep because hyperfocus doesn't care about your circadian rhythm. It's 3 a.m. I'm on my 5th YouTube tutorial about how to build a birdhouse, and I'm thinking, yeah, this is exactly what I should be doing right now. Who needs rest when you can be the best damn birdhouse builder in the tri-state area? And don't even get me started on trying to talk to other people when I'm in the throes of hyperfocus. I become the most boringly intense person on the planet. Someone casually asks, how you been? And suddenly I'm giving them a dissertation on the migratory patterns of penguins complete with diagrams and references. I can see the panic in their eyes as they realize, oh, they've triggered the penguin monologue. They're looking around for the nearest exit, and I'm still just getting started on why emperor penguins are basically the Beyonce of the bird world. And heaven forbid someone tries to pull you out of a hyperfocus. I'm deep in my craft zone, hand stitching a historically accurate Viking tunic, and someone dares to ask me, what do you want for dinner? Dinner, my friend, I am sustaining myself on the nutrients of obsession. If you want food, you can eat this fabric scrap because that's all I've got right now. Then there's the aftermath. The crash, when the hyperfixation suddenly vanishes and you're left standing in the wreckage of your own temporary obsession. It's like coming out of a trance, looking around at all the half-finished projects and obscure books you ordered at 2 a.m. You're surrounded by birdhouses or Viking tunics or whatever else your brain decided was your thing for the week. And you think, what have I done? Why do I have so many looms? And of course, just when you've achieved peak expertise, when you've finally mastered every aspect of your obsession, what happens? Poof! Your brain's like, we're done here. And suddenly all that yarn, or all those origami frogs, or that encyclopedia-level knowledge of World War II battleships, it's dead to you. You could care less. But don't worry, you're off to your next fixation. Roller skating while learning Swedish. Anyway, if you need me, I'll be in the garage. I just got really into blacksmithing because apparently I want to become a medieval artisan. So, pray for my neighbors. He's so dramatic.
It's a great. One day he'll find himself surrounded by dead bodies. Says Mella. Randy West throws in $1. He flicked it in like this, like just.
Probably made the clicking sound as well, which you can't really type out, except like an onomatopoeia. And who wants onomatopoeias? But I've never had that. I've always had a very broad sphere of interests. Whoops.
Yeah, I don't know why that happens.
Is your camera overheating?
It could be. It's my camera is an old mobile phone that is smashed to bits.
Oh, right.
So who knows?
Okay. I've always had a very broad, set of interests. My problem is I try to focus on too many at once. So it's sort of the opposite of the problem you would be having. Until I realize, I'm not learning 7 languages at once. I'm stagnating at seven languages at once instead of learning 4. Right. So that was always my problem because, as I said, I used to do all the extracurricular activities, everything except visual arts, and it just starts stretching you out too thin, and you're just not doing anything productive. You're just going through the motions and stagnating. So my problem is the opposite of yours. I wake up, not even buying a loom, but reading about it, and then having to move on to the other thing I think I'm going to do, and I don't.
Okay. Yeah, I can definitely understand the buying the books at 2 a.m. though. All these books that you'll never read. But...
Oh goodness. I've always had to argue with my brother about. He hates PDF books.
Okay.
Like, he
and all
he likes
ebooks
to
in
read.
general, or just PDF specifically?
No, reading things on a device.
Okay.
Like I understand. I prefer a physical book, but I don't mind an electronic one. He always starts this with me because I don't know. I don't know. I got like the entire set of Aristotle, and do you know how much space it takes? Do you know how long I had to wait for them to arrive? But I suppose that's more of a strong preference than anything else. But yeah, books. I love myself some books, which I suppose is good if you want to study languages.
If the text isn't optimized, oh, sorry, stuck with it. Yeah, reading. If the text isn't optimized for the smaller screen, I hate it. There's advantages, obviously. It's obviously not as good, but there are advantages. I have thought recently about buying one of those Kindle Paperwhites because I read so often to my kids at night. But I'm just thinking maybe this would be better for me. I don't know, than having the bright light directly above my head.
Yeah.
For a couple of hours each night.
Also, it will. The light can bother them in falling asleep. So there are advantages, and I wouldn't deny it. But there's something to just holding a book. I don't know if it's just something I'm used to, we are used to, because we're old people. But I don't know. There's something about the tactile nature of reading that really gets to you. Whereas I've also, there's a possibility of distraction. That's one major thing. Like if you're doing it on your phone, you don't have like a dedicated device. I mostly read on my PC, actually. I've never liked phones all that much. They're tiny and I hate typing on them. And I prefer a large wall of text that I just go through. It just makes things easier for me.
And I presume in Serbia, you've only recently gotten the Nokia 3310.
Yeah, we're already developing military usage for it. My father had one when we were children, and I love the Snake video game and the other one, which I can't remember what it's called. Something about space stuff.
Okay, Space Invaders or something like that.
Yeah,
the Snake. Go on, continue.
I was just going to say you move to the side, if I remember correctly. It's not like Space Invader where you shoot things that are, at the top of the screen.
Okay.
So that's the difference. But those are the two games, and also they had the like you can write sheet music and have it play.
Yeah, and make your own little ringtones and things.
Yes.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, I'm like 10 years older than you, so I had these phones as a teenager. So and it was fun at the time to make those. It was hilarious because gaming was already far past Snake by that time.
Yes.
But somehow, because Snake was on the mobile phones, Snake was just such a fad. Like everybody was playing Snake, and Snake. It was like it was almost like the first Minecraft, where everyone just went way back in technology and got obsessed with that instead.
Well, what about Tetris?
Tetris had that popularity, but that was at the time more so. But I know.
Also, Tetris was a separate device you would get. We had those. They were fun. But I suppose, the Snake, they still make some different type of Snake, just with modern graphics and stuff. But it's just not the same. You know,
no, it had to be there.
too fancy.
Yeah. So what was I going to say? I don't even know what I'm going to talk about next.
Right. I wanted to say the replies to the post we read. We're great at staying on topic. Like both of us have have the great mental, bulwark to stay on topic. But so that was the one I read out was the full one. The one that was shortened, I actually removed that part, and then the replies. And here's what annoys me when we, sorry. So most of them we can summarize as basically, yeah, she finally said the truth, and saying, oh, the poor guy, he's never going to recover. And again, I have my sympathies. There are some which are like, well, he's basically a child for doing things like this. But as you can see, there's one. Said some things I didn't mean. Don't worry, he knows you meant it. Like again, it's like these people have never been angry in their entire lives. Like, you've never gotten angry and then like cussed someone out and then felt bad about it. Like, anger is not like that's how you truly feel, because it will manipulate how you behave. As much as sorrow will, as much as joy will, right? If you're, the old don't make promises when you're happy, it's unwise, you're too optimistic and stuff, right? These are mood modifiers, and you can just say things just to hurt someone and then
I
feel
see
horrible
it here.
about it.
I see all these comments. Yeah, it's so over the top. Imagine inviting the love of your life into your inner sanctum, only for them to scream at you, yelling that your interests are dumb and that the individual questions why they ever got with you. That'd break most people.
Yeah. By the way, this is how women used to write 10 years ago, right? About and it goes into what I call apology porn. And I never check up whether this was the film in question, like where Hugh Grant is just in the rain. I'm sorry, shouting. Was it Love Actually? Is that the one?
Oh no, that's Bridget Jones' Diary.
Oh, whatever it was.
Whichever one it is, it's one of the ones.
I promise you, I will not remember that. And the next time I mention it, I will ask you if it's Love Actually.
Hugh Grant, right? Oh, maybe it is Love Actually. No, I think it's whatever. I don't know.
No, some gay nonsense. But whatever the case, it's like he is out there in the rain begging for forgiveness, right? And that's what some people get high off of. Like feeling like, oh yes, you're diminishing yourself, prostrating to me. It's a power move, basically, but from a victim's perspective. And that's a very common thing nowadays, applied to entire countries and religions and nations and groups, whether ethnic or whatever. So you will see a lot of drama in the comments from men, which again is that's what got me to send it to you. Not
see, you sent it to me when I was at the football game earlier, so I didn't get to read through it. I'm reading through it here, and it's so over the top. That's a toxic relationship. Divorce or actively work on fixing your issues together.
Thanks. Thanks for the advice.
Yeah, like, what a piece of shit woman. Like, what the hell? One guy up here says, one of the reasons men get married is so that we can have our nerdy and socially awkward hobbies without judgment.
Oh, God. There you go, the famous one. Yeah, you can have fun reading it, actually.
Never underestimate
you cringe at first.
how deeply you can hurt a man who has let you into his soul and trusted you. He'll leave you, and he'll never marry again. Like, well, first of all, like the one thing that
Christ.
strikes me beyond how ridiculous it is it's this whole thing of like he let her into his inner sanctum. What I think it's weird, and a lot of people are going to disagree with this, but I think it's kind of weird when I hear other people that I know who are married and they talk about how they have totally separate money.
Oh,
Right? Like to me, I find that
yeah.
kind of odd when it's
I
like
don't like that one bit.
yeah, it seems very odd to me. Like it seems really, really common with people. I don't know, I don't get it. Where it's like, oh yeah, he bought me this. It was like, and it's like, that's the downside of myself and Irene's setup. Is it's very hard for me to like be really generous and buy Irene something because I'm just taking it out of her bank account to buy it for her, right? Right.
Yeah, but it's sort of not the exact same thing, but it's sort of like you basically take money from your mum to buy her something when you're a child, to buy her something for Mother's Day. It would be the thought that counts. It's not about spending the money. You can buy a book someone likes. That's usually not expensive. But it's no. I'm completely against the whole separate bank accounts because people again need to grow up.
It's almost like a fear of. It's like a fear of the full commitment of it. It's like, what if she?
Yes.
Now I can understand if you were in a country, maybe even then, like like America, where the divorce rates are so high, and where the result of divorce is massively monetary.
Oh yeah, and by the way, those statistics are very skewed. Like they say, 40% of marriages end in divorce. All right, but you have people who divorce like 5 times.
Yeah.
So that means you've got 4 couples that have stayed together, but you've got like one couple of the 5 would divorce 5 times. So it's like 1 per couple.
Yeah.
Right. Those types of statistics are particularly useless.
And that's on purpose, I think, that they focus on the 45% instead of focusing on first time marriages. It's like 20-something% or whatever. Even like
right.
In America.
So there's that. There's also factors like the separate bank accounts things are akin to a cohabitation without marriage. Like that's the same thing. You don't commit, but if you don't commit out of fear of things falling apart. But then your lack of commitment contributes to the chances of it falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
So it's I understand, people go and interact with the red pill manosphere and they get freaked out about everything. There are genuinely vile women who destroy a man's life and take his children, and that's not to be downplayed. But again, like we mentioned with the statistics are. I've only ever grown to appreciate that quote from Mark Twain more, as I've since I first heard it. Lies, damn lies, and statistics.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to manipulate,
and you don't realize until you specifically go out of your way to look into how easy it is to manipulate statistics.
Yes. There's a rule called the 99-1 rule that is about journalism online, especially. But it also applies to other things. If you're going to 99 people are going to read the headline and perhaps the subheadline, and that's it. Like they won't go into it. And even then they have things that are called like lie through omission. That's just leaving it out. But you have lies through structure. So you give an impression that the article is claiming one thing, but like in the penultimate paragraph, it says, oh no, that actually what we mean is this and that, and they give you like the factual information, but it's it's the fact that you're going to go as deep down as you can, and not at the very end, because people can scroll to the very end. And by the time you've got to the people who have read the entire thing, you've influenced 100 like more people to just get the gist of it.
Yeah.
And no one changes it. Like the other day, I saw AI generated pictures of Mike Tyson with a Palestinian flag, and it one I saw got 70,000 likes.
Yeah, what percentage of those people just totally believed it, right?
Yeah. I'm a good.
This is actually this is a thing that came up. This is a kind of a coincidence. I was watching just some random kind of. He called himself a centrist, but this guy who was kind of like open debating people on YouTube. I can't remember what he was called, and he was. It was this kind of very. I ended up getting in a bit of a comment argument with him where he was like calling me stupid and stuff, but he was just kind of pointing out how there was nothing weird about the lockdowns and the 2020 to 2022 period, and there was no implied mandates of any sort, and there was no implied nobody ever felt pressured to get it, and all of that kind of stuff. And then he demanded that people would bring him, in order to go against this position, that this is all in our minds, that people felt pressured to get it. He demanded that we have some kind of statute or law or a news article. And he was able to show all of his news articles where at the very end it would say, but this isn't mandatory and da-da-da-da-da. And it was like, but the headline and the first line implied, right? And we all remember the context. We remember what people were saying. We remember what people were doing.
The experts were very on it. 70,000 medical care workers were fired in the state of New York alone.
That's shocking.
But I suppose unless you get a bayonet in your face, it's not mandatory. But it doesn't matter. It's all rhetorical pivoting. I've realized nothing almost matters anymore. It's just that it's what I call plebeianization of conversation. So everyone's an expert now. So, and then the actual experts don't actually have a lot of pride in what they do. It's just a job. So you don't have like the old-timey autistic people who were really, really into their work. You just get people, fighting for dear life, and dear life is grant money. So it's actually pretty awful. And you've had state governments, threaten it, and the threat of it alone, even you don't get uniformed men in the streets, with guns. Like you can be pressured in so many ways, which is why I said, if you did succumb to the pressure, there are those who are absolutely livid with those people. But what can you do if, let's say you were working, you owned a restaurant or whatever, and you have a wife and children, and now that is at stake. Like, sure, it's easy to say, well, just if you're, for example, a part-time homesteader, part-time git online, who plays the piano, it's one thing.
I thought you were referring to me there. I was like, well, gloves are off.
It would be very British of me to do, but I'm not British. No, it's one thing. Well, I wouldn't call you a part-time homesteader. I'd call you a farmer.
Actually, before you continue, hold your thought. I just want to, before I lose these things, Mud said, I'm here to expose Posh. He's not from Mongolia or whatever third world country he claims to reside in. He actually lives in Kentucky in the Appalachian Mountains, herding weasels and brewing acorn mead. Is this true?
I plead the fifth. I heard from you that both Ireland and Britain are under the NSA, so by the transitory function, I have the right to plead the fifth.
Oh, I heard you mention that funny phone call I got.
I had to mention it. I had to talk about it with all my friends, even here in Serbia. It was like so bloody funny. Yes, from the NSA. Ireland is part of Britain, whatever.
Yeah. The way he said it, he said he started saying, "I'm from the NSA," and I'm like, "What's the NSA?" And he's like, "The National Security Agency." And I'm like, "And where are you based?" And he said like he's in America. And I was like, "Okay, well that's not good. So national, that's not going to work for me then. It's national to America." And he's like, "Oh no, we are in Britain too. We have offices in Britain." And I'm like, "Well, it should be international, really." But he's like, "Well, it's national and everything." And I'm like, "Anyway, it doesn't matter because I'm in Ireland. I'm in neither of those countries." And he goes, "He'll say, Ireland, England, same."
Same.
Same.
Oh, goodness gracious. The dark side of having all of those Indian YouTube tutorials for like the smallest of things.
Before I let you get back to what you were saying as well, I wanted to draw. Raina Velas was talking about the
I saw
the
that.
divorce thing, and I thought this was interesting. Read that.
My paternal grandmother divorced 11 times. I went to her 11th wedding. She didn't come to mine because she said she wanted to come to the next one instead. Yeah. So imagine how much this skews results. Statistics are very important, but they're supposed to be used within a group of people who know how to read statistics. The moment you drop them on the general public, they're not going to, and obviously they present it in a way they wanted things to be seen. I'm not saying that, I'm just a good-hearted academic and a scientist, so here you go, general public, from my quest for truth. Like, no, they do it intentionally, but it's something that really causes palpable damage to young people. I've also said that a huge problem is that the way things work, you sort of, people get heartbroken in relationships and they sour on it, and that is going to be already a problem, always will be. But then you find a validation in statistics. So if you're a young man and you date a girl, she breaks your heart, you go through the phase where you hate all women, except the ones you know, but never mind. The abstract woman really sucks. So now you get this allegedly scientific validation for not engaging in anything, adult-like, like getting married, starting families, etc. So I'm very concerned because this has been going on forever. Statistics are used in such vile ways that it's very blackpilling for me personally, because everyone goes through it, whatever their case, they will find a statistics that works in their favor, and then the opposing statistic, well, who did that? Or all of a sudden, skepticism wakes up. Well, who did the research? Who did that? And the additional problem, that's a valid thing to be concerned about. I did hear Brett Weinstein. I saw a clip of him on Joe Rogan calling it the Decartesian crisis. Basically, no one knows what to trust anymore. So, and that's a big problem to have. It's like an epistemological solipsism. How that tends to resolve itself is confirmation bias. That's it. Yeah. You just, this thing kind of makes sense to me, and here's confirmation. And that's the problem we're having now. We don't have adult conversations. And to get back to my point, when I said you could be a part-time homesteader, part-time streamer who plays the piano. And you
Specifically
can
the piano part, everybody. And I'm not
Yes.
part-time.
Yeah, I would have to include Irene in that for it to make sense. But you have the well, I'm not a part-time homesteader. That's what's saving me. but it's one thing to sit there, and it actually worked in the media's favor, which included the alternative media, to have people locked down. They spend more time consuming content. So you were, you benefited actually from it monetarily. And you're sitting there dictating to people how they should behave, the people who depend on jobs which were truly endangered by the actions that were taken for our benefit. Oh, goodness. Yeah, the picks for the cabinet have been really great, haven't they? but it's I don't want to get fully into politics, but things still need to be negotiated. Every pick needs to be confirmed, so you can't just put up a dream team for everyone who got blackpilled, which wasn't me at all. But yeah, so people really lack the proper empathy, which is to try and think what I would do were I in your place. Like you had in Britain, like pubs that existed for hundreds of years, which couldn't survive that. Not to mention, obviously, with the supply lines barely existing, the cost of energy, which is currently the highest in Europe.
Yeah.
A lot of businesses cannot survive it.
I think they're being punished, right? I don't think that's natural. I think they're being punished for Brexit. What do you think about that?
I'm not actually sure. I think that's part of it, but Britain's role in the European Union was always to muck things up on the continent. That's basically 90% of Britain's historical foreign policy, mucking things up on the continent. Because every time things were being mucked up on the continent, someone came over and whooped them. And obviously the biggest concern for generally, like what we would call the Anglo-American alliance, was a rapprochement between Germany and Russia. Like that's something you must never allow. That cannot come to pass. That because too powerful a combo. And that's why you always try to provoke something between them. Maybe like blowing up a pipeline that connects them. And then you say it was like two drunk Ukrainians doing it. So yeah, Germany is in a poor state right now. I don't know. So if anyone's getting punished, it's Germans. Like they're doing horribly. Volkswagen is really, really suffering. A lot of their chemical industry has had to be transported to the US. So yeah, and they have had at least a Green Party leading them. So that's a good position to start from. And that government has now fallen apart. Whether there will be elections, we will see. And if they go for AFD, I don't know what the others around them are going to do. So fun stuff, eh?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. Germany and Japan neither have ever really fully recovered from, like, spiritually and culturally from World War II. It feels like neither have ever really been themselves.
Yeah. Well, Japan somewhat has, but Japan was already pretty westernized by the time the Second World War came around.
Yeah.
Like they maintained
the general trend, because they're a very masculine society. Like culturally, even when I was there, culturally very masculine. But there's this strong undercurrent of feminization that's constantly just pushing and pushing at them all the time. And it's, I think it's like, I don't know much about German culture, but I hear that there's this constant need to virtue signal in Germany, and they're everything's Hitler, right? Everything's Hitler, and everything's this and that and the other. In Japan, I think there's this constant need, because they have the rape in Nanking, and they have
I'm well aware. Unit 731, what they did in the Philippines. I'm very much aware.
And I think there's this cultural guilt there, almost like they can't believe it, because it's very hard to believe it when you're there.
Choose to ignore it.
People.
Yeah, they choose to ignore such things. Because it wasn't even like what the Soviets did in Germany, where, like more than 20 million of your people are dead, so now you want revenge. Like, Japan was never conquered by anyone up until, the end of the Second World War. They were just being aggressive. And before they started going at Korea and China and places, they were fighting each other. So it's a very, very martial culture, very sophisticated culture as well. On my stream, I mentioned, like, China is not a martial culture. Everyone talking about how China is going to take over the world, like, that's not going to be the way America does it. It's going to be more like economic, and they do that quite a bit. But that's what they've always been. They suck at war. They lost almost every war they had against Korea, which is like a bloody pimple compared to them. But it doesn't matter. The only times they win wars is basically civil ones. They also lose simultaneously. Japan, on the other hand,
they win civil wars.
Oh yeah. So, there's a joke about France. They have to have civil war so they win one every so often. Well, that's just bollocks. Like, France is, I think, the most successful military nation that ever existed. You can say the Mongols, but they just went around raiding. Like,
this modern surrender monkey.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
Cheese-eating surrender monkey.
Like, they have like centuries of victory and strength and everything, and then there's just this
everyone being afraid of them across the world. Like, Britain was freaking out all the time, and then you get done over once, and that's it. Now,
cheese-eating surrender monkeys. I want to do a massive pivot, Posh. I want to ask you something.
Go ahead.
You said rhetorical pivoting earlier.
Yes.
And it got me thinking about something. It's something that I've noticed with the left wing, liberals, American liberals in particular, but Irish liberals too, is that I've noticed a real trend of pivoting over the last 6 to 9 months. But certainly with the Americans, where they're trying to like they always adopt like right wingers were saying snowflakes for a while, and now no right winger says snowflake in about the last 4 years, but liberals are still calling right wingers snowflakes all the time because they just adopt it and pivot. And it's the same with recently they've been saying that right wingers just don't love their country, and right wingers just they don't love American values. And the other thing that they're saying now, I've noticed a trend of calling right wingers feminine and gay. Right, I've noticed this in Facebook groups, right? And it doesn't make any sense because you're all about the pride flags. So surely you don't think there's a problem with being gay, right?
But they pretended internal critique.
Yeah, but this pivoting that they do, I'd love to know, why is it that, what you think? Why is it that they do that? What's the psychology of their pivoting that right wingers don't seem to do, conservatives don't seem to do?
So the way I see it, you've got conservatism, liberalism, and progressivism. And I'm trying to gesticulate. So liberals are in the middle. And the problem with being in the middle in any spectrum is that you really lack substance. What I mean by that is, if you're middle class doesn't really, they have their own, idiosyncratic traits, but they tend to sort of be half upper class, half lower class, and neither at the same time. So the middle class always has an identity struggle, and has a shield like, they're well-to-do, but they're not exactly, extraordinarily wealthy. So you can't blame them for that. blame them for that. But they're also not poor, but they are like working people. They're not out there, exploiting children in Africa. So they're in a good place to defend themselves, but they have no substance. So there's a constant identity crisis, which is why it's usually the middle-class people who are so utterly insufferable and constantly whinging about what's going on, and having, going into social trends, social contagions, as they're called. It mostly affects them. Like, working class people don't suffer from this. They need to work. There's a substance to it. There's a feeling to it. They tend to be the most patriotic. They tend to be the most socially conservative, etc. But so for the liberals, progressives don't call, conservatives or right wingers or whatever. They don't call let him cook. They don't call the conservatives feminized or something, because progressives have a sort of inner reason to them. They think they're bending the arc of history towards justice, and they're not. But they have reasons to believe from internal consistency that they are. Mm-hmm. So their problem is constant purity spiraling due to a lack of solid, dogma-like belief. It's too vague. We're just helping the oppressed. That's not a solid categorization that can withstand, progression of time. And the conservatives have the most substance, because it's appealing to tradition, it's appealing to history, it's appealing to religion, etc. So there's solidness to it, which you can then maneuver from properly, like a proper pivot, in the sense of you have one foot solidly on the ground and you can turn around, but you can't move from there. As far as the liberals go, in the middle, they take what they like, right? Progressives don't talk about being patriotic. They talk about how their country is the worst thing ever, wherever they are, but they don't have that problem. A liberal can't go there, but they also can't go into a full, hurrah of my country is the best, everyone else can suck it. So they have to stay in the middle. And they will then hop about, from one side to the other, not in a critical sense, in the sense of every patriot should go ahead and criticize their country when they're doing something wrong. We've seen this massively grow in American conservatism since the war in Iraq and incursions into Libya, etc. People are going, wait, I thought we were helping people, we've made everything worse, right? So they pivoted to what's called paleoconservatism, your Pat Buchanan's in the 90s, etc. You have a new crop of those who are against intervention. They're patriotic but want to focus in. So the liberals see that as an opening. They have no substance. So they can say, oh, wait, we can be the neocon type of patriot. We are fighting oppression across the world. We're saving minorities, etc. And have the same exact problem as the conservatives of old had, where, wait, so Putin's against the gays, so we need to fight him, but then we're allied with Saudi Arabia. How exactly does that work? Peter Hitchens is great on this. He's always been what we call a paleoconservative. He said, you're just going to ignore, sorry, oh yes, I need a pen. We're just going to ignore all of these discrepancies in our claims, and if we're fighting for these values, then we must apply them universally. I need a pen to do a Peter Hitchens impression. So that's what they do, and all they can do is then pivot again when someone tries to, challenge them. So they often just reflect what used to be a conservative critique, like a couple of years ago. Nowadays, the time span shortens because of social media and stuff. So, how many of us have heard you're not a real law and order person because you support Trump, and he's been indicted with so many things, and then the conservatives soured on the intelligence community, so the liberals fill that in, whereas the progressives say, good, you should sour on the intelligence agencies. Look what they're doing. So we see two groups with substance who can find agreement, and then the one with the identity crisis can't agree with anything. They have to try and find vacua to fill. That's all they can do. They can't be pinned down to one thing.
Okay. And do you think there's some how did these it almost feels like at times when these sudden rollouts of a position where all of a sudden they're saying something like oh, conservatives just hate America. This seems to be the big one at the moment for American conservatives. This is American Twitter. How does that roll out? How does it catch so quickly that they're all like suddenly Destiny's saying it and everybody's saying it as if they've always thought it? Suddenly it's like the thing to say. How does that catch on?
Well, the simple thing is, so you've got intelligence agencies who work with the media. We see this very often with how a certain word or a phrase appears in every headline. What was it when Kamala Harris had that interview with Brett Baer on Fox, and he was pretty confrontational. Almost every outlet used the word testy, I believe it was. Very testy interview. And you see, okay, that's not a very common word. It wasn't confrontational, it wasn't challenging, it wasn't so on. All of them used testy. So now you've got that basic batch, let's say, of talking points, which roll out, and then a lot of people, like Destiny, pick up on it, twist it into, flavor it for their own purposes and their own, how shall we say, particular bent. And then you have orbiters around him who are trying to be like, emulate what he does, and they go with that as well. So it starts off, I believe, inorganically, but very quickly is picked up by the commentariat. And I don't think there's always a fellow in a black suit and sunglasses and who knocks on your door and says, this is what you're talking about today. You don't need to do that. And you've got these liberals, the centrists, always believe that they are the rational ones. Everyone else is just ideologically captured. So which further increases the problem of lacking substance. You listen to these people. If you don't want to fund the war in Ukraine, you hate America. Now, does that make any sense? Not particularly, but it can be twisted into an argument, or a narrative at least, that if you don't want to oppose Putin, and Putin is the nemesis of America, then you hate America. And it doesn't matter what you say, that's all going to be secondary. People will justify anything, any amount of evidence you produce for the coup in 2014, like the Maidan coup, and what has been happening on in the Donbass region since then. Doesn't matter. It's you're allowed to think Putin bad, we good, so good guys have to stop the bad guy. And the old formula, calling everyone an appeaser, you're Neville Chamberlain. That's literally it, and has been used by everyone almost. Like everyone you want to fight a war with is Hitler. and you were either going to react as a Neville Chamberlain or as a Winston Churchill, and that's it. But not to mention, they literally called Zelensky Winston Churchill of our time.
Yeah, so everyone likes to think that they're hunting for truth. You know, even people like Destiny he would see himself as being somebody who's very oriented towards what's true, you know. And yet you can see him twist himself around ideas.
Oh, yeah.
Twist himself into like pretzel to try and make the things that he believes fit. That mechanism, I find it very difficult to totally understand. And I'm sure this is my own blind spot, where I don't understand why somebody would willingly lie to themselves about something, especially when they value themselves as being someone who tells the truth or who seeks the truth.
Because he's in the spotlight, this is just fully assuming he isn't just an outright grifter. So let's just
assuming he's not an asset, as they say, right?
Oh yeah, but so let's get that out of the way, because we can't really know if he is, or if he is, how much of that is the operative vector in his behavior. So as far as he is concerned, he is constantly in the spotlight, right? He had a reputation. Here's a lefty you can actually deal with, you can debate. And he builds this aura. A lot of people build their entire personality around one thing, right? Some do it on sports, career, looks, a particular talent they've got. And that's all they've got. It's a very shallow thing to do, but far from uncommon. Mm-hmm. And he built this reputation online, if not in his head, of being the debate guy. He talks very quickly. He possesses this vast amount of knowledge. And the problem is, if you don't invest enough time to research topics you're debating, there are plenty of topics I wouldn't debate even in theology. I know I lack the knowledge of it. But I also am willing to say that if you're trying to maintain the debate bro reputation, you constantly need to do something to make it seem, or at least do damage control over your the superficiality of your knowledge. So you can see that you can't admit a mistake. You can't admit that you're not competent at that particular thing. I'm sure he would refuse to debate, like, I don't know, like quantum physics. Yeah, but you've got a good excuse. But when it comes to geopolitical events, there's too many to follow. You'd have to be a proper journalist with decades of experiences and with personal sources or researchers to be able to keep up. You can't do it otherwise. You can't devote yourself personally to 5 wars. That's just not going to happen. So what you end up doing is sort of like what people do if they're in a debate and are confronted with a question they haven't got an answer to. You improvise. You just whatever, just make it go away. It's a sort of a spasm that you go through, and he doesn't seem very stable to me. Never has. No. For multiple reasons, and he has been and continues to be a subject of personal humiliation over his legitimate cuckoldry. So not just an insult for the sake of it, and then being abandoned. So he's supposed to maintain some level of credibility, but personally, he has shown himself to be a failure. And then meth mouth, as
meth mouth. The constant gurning. Does he have any does he have any excuse for that? Is that supposed to be something wrong with his jaw? Like it's intense.
Some type of. I've heard people say. I haven't heard him say it. I don't really listen to him all that much. But apparently he has some attention deficit disorder. So it's like a fidgeting thing. I fidget quite a bit, but not in any way that is common with with usage of certain medicaments.
Yeah, his gurning, it's very much gurning. Like, anybody who's been in those scenes at all will recognize it straight away. And It's
Right.
yeah.
So it could be the case, but my fidgeting is usually I move my fingers around, I move my eyebrows around, but that's just basically boredom. I don't gurn.
Yeah.
So yeah, it could be also medication. And it's not a good place to be. So he hasn't got anything to fall back on other than rhetorics, basically. Hasn't got the depth of knowledge. Physically, he's not a specimen to go for that, even, go like a Wes Watson route
Yeah.
with your shaved arms. So really nothing to fall back on other than being the debate guy, and it's not going well, so you're just going to spiral.
Okay. Yeah, because
That's
you do
how
see
I-
these. You're seeing these constant embarrassments for him at the moment. That's why he comes up so much for me on my feed at the moment. He was even on with Gavin McInnes recently, and you wouldn't. Gavin McInnes isn't exactly the man who's got a reputation for excellent debate skills. He's a rhetorician, but
Great. Well, he's very funny.
very funny. But he just kind of demolished Destiny, just slowly split them apart. So.
Because one thing Destiny has over a lot of people, so which can't work against someone like Gavin McInnes or with someone like Andrew or with Jim Bob, is he's quick-witted enough to humiliate the other person, make a joke about them, and he speaks quickly, so the delivery is very fast. But the moment you get into the ring with someone like Gavin, who's quite a troll, that's not going to work. I saw that clip. I just remember I hate British people.
I should find it, should I? We should actually play it because it was worth.
You all suck.
But Gavin's always been hilarious. I haven't watched him in years. I think I stopped watching him probably around 2017 or 18. But he was so funny back in those days, back in the 2016 days.
What really soured him for me is when he made out with Milo Yiannopoulos to own the Muslims.
Yeah,
and you're married and have children. That's not really a winner move to make out with the man.
Plus, where's your disgust sensitivity? It kind of shows how low his disgust sensitivity must be.
I don't know. He can overwrite it with just willingness to annoy people, which isn't a good thing.
No, because there's no way. No matter how much I want to annoy people, there's no way Baron Strawberry makes out with made by Jim Bob or something.
You both have beards, so it's going to be messy, right? But I couldn't get over it. That soured the entire thing for me, so I couldn't continue watching. But I did get some. Well, kind of, yes. He started off as well, some type of anarchist or whatever.
And he is kind of a liberal, even still.
Yeah. He just has beliefs like gender isn't mutable, which isn't the same thing as being a liberal. So he has a different approach from his liberalism. But he's not a conservative. Chase jumped on my stream last Sunday, and we talked about MAGA isn't a conservative movement; it's a populist movement. Because I can't think of anyone who's a principled, proper conservative intellectual who is anywhere near office right now. Someone like a Colonel Douglas McGregor, a man obviously educated, obviously well-read, army veteran, literally has the distinction of leading the biggest tank battle since Kursk. So he very accomplished, but when you listen to him, he obviously knows at least somewhat, right, about the economy. So he's not disconnected from it and just keeps circling around his area of expertise. He tries to branch out. He talks about history. He's done quite a bit of studies in history, you know, and yeah, punks and so he did a video, didn't he? Like he's like dressed like a punk and stuff. Says, yeah, I want the government to leave me alone. I want X, Y, Z, etc., etc. So
Yeah.
wait, that's the conservatives? And then he like switches to like a suit and tie. Like, well, I guess I'm a conservative now. Like, it reminds me of that. I will never get over it. It disgusted me almost more than the gayness of to own the libs, muzzies. Sorry. When Paul Joseph Watson said conservatism is the new punk rock, I'm like, no, don't do this to me.
No,
that's gayer than
means
the
eventually
trannies.
it's going to die.
Yeah, and it's going to suck while it exists. Punk sucks.
Because this was before the election, and now with hindsight in mind, we have the facts. So, language warning for this one.
Had your kids, had your wife.
With that, let's get into it.
So with the American election happening in the coming days, I'm speaking to a social media personality, Destiny, otherwise known as Stephen Bonnell, his real name, and Gavin McKinney is founder of the Proud Boys, a far-right organisation, designated terrorist group in Canada and New Zealand. So let's get started. We'll talk about Trump and we'll talk about Kamala Harris. So let's start with Trump. Gavin, we'll start with you. So Trump is currently in several court cases of being accused of rape, election interference, and different things.
Wow.
Isn't he not? And what do you think of all of this, and why are you supporting him?
I just realized I dislike Destiny quite a bit because he represents this sort of cuck culture. But I realize I hate British people even more. You're all retarded. You're the victims of your BBC government-funded propaganda. He was charged with rape. One thing you have to understand is our justice system is fucking garbage. Our judges are retarded. So when you hear someone has been accused or someone's going to court or someone was sentenced or someone's in jail, it doesn't mean they're guilty. It means they're victims of lawfare. And Trump has been a victim of lawfare since he started running in 2016. In 2015, he was a victim of lawfare.
Okay, guys. So as you can see from the start of the debate here, there is no love lost between.
So anyway, yeah, that's it. And it just goes on like that. That's Rattlesnake TV. He's had Andrew on a good few times, hasn't he?
Yeah, and he did recently did a stream with Jay and Jim Bob about
he's
the transcendental argument and stuff.
He seems pretty good.
I mean, look at him. Why wouldn't he? Look at this dude.
Pardon me?
I said, look at this dude. Why wouldn't he? You're fucking insane. You're two peas in a pod. Insane.
Okay. Great argument. I'm supporting Trump because politics is downstream from culture. And there's a great book by Selena Zito called The Great Revolt. And what she discovered when she was so confused by everyone being against Obama, she assumed it was racism. And she discovered that the problem with Obama was this culture of shame and self-hatred.
I want to get into the whole video, but it was just so funny the way he just dismisses all of Destiny's attempts at just like, you're insane. Okay, good argument. He's kind of impervious to that kind
You're
of
insane. Doesn't help that he has like 500 ping when he moves.
Fernona, good evening from Dublin. Let's not forget Alan Shatter, wall toucher, opened up Ireland's borders en masse via citizenship ceremonies.
Is this recent? I'm not as acquainted with Ireland as I am with the UK.
I don't know. I don't think this is a recent thing he's talking about.
Well, wait, it has to be in the past because it's Shatter and not shit.
Shatter's Shatter's some time ago.
So he's like your Tony Blair, is he?
No, I don't think you'd call him our Tony Blair. But yeah, but this is what goes on. And Alan Shatter has. Oh, he's talking about running again. I didn't even hear about this. I'm so outside the loop here. Okay, yeah.
Challenge him to a game of Gaelic football.
Yeah, that'll sort it out. Trinona Wa, what is it? Loughrea Era 1014. There must be a lot of Loughrea Era. Unless is this a station? Is this a radio station, 101.4 or something? I'm wondering.
1014 is the Norman
1014.
invasion.
Okay. See, look at that. Oh my goodness.
So I guess he's rooting for the French to take over England, I'm guessing.
Why doesn't he drink Budweiser? Hey, it's that guy that sodomized himself to own the libs, yeah. Gavin going full get off my lawn vibe. Make my day a mod.
His show is called that, I believe. Yeah, right, isn't it?
Yeah, get off my lawn.
Yeah.
That was his whole kind of pivot into that kind of style.
Yeah.
Discussion.
No, he always lacked substance, which is a problem for anyone who goes through a rearrangement of their ideological persuasion. It can't be avoided. You're going to have to go through a very tumultuous period until things settle down. And for some, it's very quick. Like for me, it didn't really take long before I found my footing again, but that's because I like these things and I read a lot of history and stuff. So I'm not being thrown from like basic, how should we say, like basic propaganda into nothingness. I'm going from advanced propaganda to, knowledge of history and philosophy and stuff. So I found my footing rather quickly, and it did have a lasting effect on me. I told you when we were talking in private, I told you I was like a very talented child, which bred a standingly poor ego. And by poor, I mean big. So,
yeah.
I mean morally poor, quantitatively large. Until I had that break in ideology, and I realized, oh, you're not that smart, are you? You just can do a lot of tricks.
That can be humbling if you're willing to admit.
Yeah, and very few people see that way. For me, it was natural. It wasn't some thing I pondered. Like my natural reaction to me stopping, believing in socialism was like, how on earth did I believe that? I felt almost insane. Like what's happening? But a lot of people go through these shifts and like, lots of things happen, I suppose. So yeah, and he didn't do any type of soul searching either. It seems it's just I used to be an anarchist, but now it's closer to being a conservative, and he is a war hawk, which again sucks. So yeah.
Well, Shadows 2011, 2014. He's the sinister Minister of Justice. Okay.
Sinister means left. We talked about this.
Oh, I didn't know the sinister meant left.
No, we talked about being left-handed, but and right is Dexter, like Dexter.
Okay, yeah, well, I know that. I didn't know sinister. Yeah. Makes sense when I think about it.
Yeah, we get that from the Romans. Like pagans were. If you thought people in our cultures were not happy about being left-handed, you should see the pagans.
Now, what was I going to say? There was something I was going to ask you. I'm going to have to wrap up now within the next 10 minutes.
Fair enough. Me too.
So is there something else that you would like to talk about? Otherwise, I will pivot again into something totally different.
Go ahead. We talked about quite a bit. Might as well add a bit more.
Then what I'm going to pivot into is something new that I've discovered. We had 2 episodes. The two of us have talked quite a bit about the red pill and that kind of sort of that misunderstanding, that way that they create this kind of monolithic monster out of women, and but that whole topic, right? Now, I found out an interesting psychological fact recently. So, as we know, psychology can be taken with a pinch of salt sometimes, but studies seem to suggest that there's like a bifurcation of the dating market. Okay, and it seems to be based on mirror neurons, and there's a high correlation with this, where we develop our mirror neurons when we're babies, and we develop them a lot when our mothers mirror our behavior. in a lot of ways, right? So you smile, you laugh, you giggle, you move, you cry, you fart or whatever, and your mother and your father and your siblings respond to you as if you matter regardless. That you get attention just for being you, and you get noticed just for being you. And there's this instinct to survive, which means if you're not getting that attention, you have to develop new processes for garnering attention, right?
Okay.
And what ends up happening is you get these two different types of people. And you get people who have an external, I've forgotten the terminology now, an external source of importance,
validation.
Of validation. There we go, of feeling that they matter, and the people who get it from an internal, they have an internal sense of that. Women who have an internal sense of validation will find men with an external sense of validation to be busy and confusing, and it won't, like, they could be highly attractive, they could be generally quite dressed very well and so on, but the women will just find them confusing, and they won't be sure what their objectives are, and these men will experience that woman as just being disinterested or kind of standoffish, and will move on to the next woman. But the woman who the woman who they do find interesting the woman who does find them interesting will be another person who also has an external source of validation, an external modus of validation. And so when these men, the whatever podcast men and so on, when they talk about how every woman will leave you for a guy with a six-pack or a guy with a nicer car or the newer iPhone or whatever, it's because within their dating circle it's true.
Oh, right? Yeah, I see confirmation bias.
Right, and that then you have you and me, who maybe our experiences of women have been different types of women, and we're like, what are all these guys talking about? Right?
Exactly.
And we're living in different worlds.
Now, I generally dislike needy people. Women are at least adorable, so you can tolerate it. When a man is needy, you're like, oh God, no. So I never could stand someone who's too needy. So I suppose that's more of the other. It's not like people who would have an internal sense are completely disinterested in the outside world and don't appreciate, good company and compliments and stuff. It's just that that it's not a necessity. It's not like you feel abandoned if you don't get that. And I could never. So from my dating history, it was always someone who's like, yeah, it's fine. But I also see how someone could see that as cold. I just never did.
But isn't it interesting that
they're not cold, by the way.
That we would not even necessarily, there would just be this natural bifurcation. Neither would even experience the rejection.
Yeah,
it would just
survivor's bias.
Yeah, and like she'd be trying to get away from you, and vice versa, right? If a guy who has this kind of quiet, kind of internal sense of validation of what I've got my terminology messed up, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If he approaches one of these women who requires a lot of external kind of high energy sort of complimenting, and that he has the right shirt on and he's loud and he's flashy, if she requires that, this quiet, or not even necessarily quiet, but this guy who feels self-assured approaches her, she's just going to find him boring or disinteresting or low status in some way, and she won't be interested either.
And he will find her annoying and needy. Yeah.
Annoying and needy, yeah.
Well, that's a natural thing. It's sort of like introverts and extroverts. That's not the same thing as what you are describing. But if you are, I'm quite introverted. I'm almost asocial. I just don't feel the need for it. But if someone is then extroverted, they're going to find me like some bloody creep, just hiding in corners. That's what it's going to seem like, and they all seem like mad to me. Oh, I want to go to a music festival. Oh, so you're insane. That's what I hear, and I just can't imagine it. there are these natural tendencies. I talked about this also with, I think we also mentioned it here, like annoying vegans. Yeah, those are the ones you're going to encounter. You're not going to encounter the quiet vegans because they're quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And people who feel the need to tell you whatever they are. So vegans is the obvious example. It's a trend, massive trend on the internet, etc. But you're going to find people annoying because it's the annoying people who are going to be annoying other people with whatever it is that they see as paramount in the world right now, whether it's veganism, a certain political agenda, or cultural shift, whatever it is. That's whom you're going to meet. The people who are quiet just keep it to themselves. So from your experience, you only ever meet the annoying ones. So you think all of them are annoying. That's going to happen with, like you mentioned, like if your dating history is you find these types of man or woman attractive, like, or at least compatible, because you resonate on the need for validation, and that goes wrong. You're going to think that goes wrong, but to you, it's not like, oh, I am a person who seeks external validation. That's not how people do it. Neither are we like people who are more closed off. Do we experience it as, oh, I am closed off? You just think, no, I'm normal. It's just, and even as I speak, I think, yeah, as compared to them. And I don't believe in things like, oh, we take the most extreme one and the most extreme other, and then we...
The Battle of Clontarf was in 1014. I wouldn't know my dates very well. I'm not a historian of it, clearly. But yeah, the Battle of Clontarf is a very important battle in Irish history.
Yeah, I'm still going with the Norman invasion. So yeah, that's an excellent observation. I've not encountered that piece of information. So I appreciate being introduced to it. It seems like a good thing to read into further.
Yeah, that's my plan. I'd like to maybe talk about it again, maybe next time or something, maybe look into it a little bit more and figure out what exactly is the data on it, because it would certainly be, it's very interesting if it's true.
Yes. It makes a lot of sense to me.
And you can see then why you would get a visceral reaction. When we say things, we'll get a few people who like you or people who like me in the chat who will say, what the fuck are you guys talking about? Like, clearly every woman will leave you if you don't have the latest iPhone. Like, that's just obvious. And you're like...
and by the way, we would all know that we know a girl or woman who is like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that to us, it's like, yeah, we have crazy people and insane people all over the place. Like, it's not even worth considering it as a sample. You know, you can consider it a bad personality trait at best, but we wouldn't see it as a representative of anything because our experiences differ so wildly.
Cheating is also correlated with it. Cheating in relationships, infidelity is correlated with this need for external validation.
Right. I will be the one to emphasize this one. So yes.
So the women aren't lying is what I was going to say. When they say every man cheats, they probably experience the world that way, that every man they get with ends up cheating because they're in that dating pool, right?
They go for the ones who are like that. Also, yeah, it's just that those women will then have that perspective of men, and the men will have that perspective of women, but never have any reflection on their own side because they think they're representative of their own side and they personally are very reasonable. Mm-hmm. And that's not how things work, unfortunately. So it reminds me of the whole thing, you know, like women will go for the guy with a six pack and money, and but then when women say, yeah, and you'll go for the bigger tits, oh no, we wouldn't. Actually, men are quite sensitive, and they will let you into their inner sanctums. Like listen, don't play coy with me. We all know there's animalistic urges. The problem is people need to work on those. Like, and again, in orthodoxy, we always think of actions as opposed to like thoughts. Like, okay, it would be great not to have the thoughts either, but that's not how this works, especially with our metaphysics. But it's like we would never see someone who just goes out and eats an entire cake and goes, oh, well, there you go. I'm evolutionarily programmed to seek calorie intake, so I go for the... Right, we would never see that as a justification. Like, yeah, I understand. You want to go eat, whether it's sweets, whether it's alcohol, whether it's like whatever type of food. Restraint is something you practice as an adult, or at least you should. And that doesn't mean that all of a sudden, oh, men only want girls in, traditional clothing and like pretty hair and a soft voice, which all sounds great, but then we're going to pretend men don't go for like slags with, half of their breasts exposed and like short skirts and stuff. No, that's a very popular thing. And it also reminds me, like, everyone thinks, oh, men are black-pilled over modern women. Like, okay, what do you think the other side thinks? What do you think when women, listen to someone like, not Andrew Tate, what's the other one? Tristan Tate, who makes a video about how to take a girl's virginity, and then see men defending them and are like, oh, so this is who you are. But again, they're not going to go. I'm not going to actively seek out Andrew Tate content and comment on it. I'm just going to say, what an absolute bastard, and move on with my life. But then if you go into the comment section and you see men defending this, you're going to get black-pilled. As much as if you open like some story about I cheated on my husband and it's made me a better person. There's like 1 billion of those articles, and you're a man and you open the comments and it's all this, well, maybe he should have paid more attention to her, and blah, blah, blah. Right? Blackpilling. But it's all like not just anecdotal, it's just nonsense. That you think that you can form a proper opinion without even taking into account these basic parameters like selection, like who is most likely to comment on something. Like I talked about the annoying vegans.
Yeah, this girl. You reminded me. You were kind of doing the joke about the guy with the cake. Yeah. Well, I'm biologically programmed. This woman did a response.
Different evolutionary pressures.
Yeah, this woman did a response to that, to the way men say that. I'm designed to spread my seed, that whole argument. So it's, why did you cheat on me? So this girl's supposed to have cheated on her husband, right?
You cheat on me?
I was ovulating. You don't know women. You haven't grown up with women. My body, I was just listening to my body. We are chemically created. I have this chemical thing in me where I have to reproduce. My body, I was just listening to my body. I was at the club, there was a man there, cute, a couple drinks in. I was like, my body was like, reproduce.
What are you talking? So you're blaming science for you cheating?
Yes, I have no control.
Okay, yeah, you didn't have to go home with them.
You obviously don't understand what it's like being a woman. Like, my body is chemically built so that I have to reproduce, and I was just listening to my body while I was ovulating. My body was screaming.
All right, well,
my eggs were like, let me intertwine with his sperm.
All right, fine. I cheated on you too.
You know how it works. What?
I cheated on you too then.
What the fuck? Your body's not built the same way. You're an asshole.
Okay,
Is this a skit, just to be clear?
I think it's a skit. I have to presume it's
I would guess so, but it's also done like...
It's presented everywhere as if it's real, but I have to presume.
Oh, obviously. But listen, you can't hold your phone like that and, not have it, especially not to a woman. They can notice it from like 100 yards away. But yeah, that's actually a good argument from their side, right? If we're all evolutionarily pressured, like ovulation, this is one thing that really allowed me to
Get
have
laid?
no. Within a relationship, the first long-term relationship I was in, you sort of get like 4 weeks in a month, let's round it up. So like for 2 weeks it's like normal, and then for 1 week she wants to jump you every chance she gets, and then for a week feels like she's dying, and you're like, are they insane? But then you don't account for, like, okay, you've got the ovulation, it is an actual thing. But as I said, yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, men don't need ovulation to find someone attractive, nor do you need anything. It's not an excuse, but it is an actual condition. So parameters change. Now you interact with that, and it's not just insanity. It's a process required for fertilization. But if they want to go with, well, men are biologically programmed for diversity. I heard this from Dennis Prager, so it's good. So you want different women, but women aren't. Like, where do you get that? Why do they do it then? Oh, because they were programmed by feminism. Is that it? Well, if we are evolutionarily programmed for diversity, so that we spread our seed, well, shouldn't women be programmed to get like the highest quality seed? And from the lizard brain, which is a bunk term, by the way.
So what can she do? Like, she can't.
Right. Well, different evolutionary pressures, Baron Strawberry. That's
Have you tried wrestling with a Tyrannosaurus Rex? Because that's what we're talking about.
Yes. I don't feel like taking a shower now, sweetheart. It's evolutionary pressures. Men need to conserve things, so that we can do X, Y, and Z. So I don't feel like showering. What do you mean I can't get to the bed? So it's always some type of rationalization, some mechanism for just industrial grade excuse making.
Yeah. So Crispy just said I should rate. I'm going to be finished now in the next minute, Crispy.
Okay.
So I don't know if I'm going to be around by the time Kotel goes live.
Hasn't he started?
I have 2 chapters of. I'm going to check if he started. I'm going into the.
I'll do that. You finish up.
Oh, I have it open. So let's see.
He is live.
Oh, he is.
So set it up. I think he started about the same time we did, which was unfortunate. But we've been missing out on a few dates.
That's why we didn't have a couple of hundred viewers.
From the evolutionary pressures to watch.
It was because Kotel went live in our slot. Okay.
Yeah, he took us long. We started like 3 minutes late, so there you go. Yeah. That's natural selection.
He's so gay. Yeah. So all right, I have him set up now so that it will rate him when I'm finished. I have 2 chapters of Harry Potter to read, because I have to finish the book by next Thursday because they want to watch the movie with their mother. So I have to keep on top of all the chapters per day.
Non-evolutionary pressures, more like infant pressures.
Infant pressures. They're up there waiting right now. They're probably literally watching the stream going.
Okay, let's not keep them waiting then. It's good that we've done this when we did, so we get back in form for like next time.
Yeah, definitely. I want to change. If you're into it, I want to change to try and do it more regularly on a Saturday or a Friday, something like that.
Yeah, that
Tuesdays,
fine.
Tuesdays used to be my day, but now I'm really struggling with it.
It's also a very awkward time, so we should go for Friday, Saturday. That works well.
Saturday's good because it's much rarer that we clash with Jim Bob or Kotel.
Yeah, that's also a factor.
Yeah, even though today it didn't work out for us, but in general. All right, Ihawa, God bless. See you later.
God bless.
Play out.
I have a girlfriend right now.